Welcome to stories of betrayal, revenge and shocking life twists, where real emotions, hidden secrets and shocking betrayals unfold. Every story here will keep you on edge, pulling you into a world of suspense, heartbreak and unexpected revenge. I used to believe I had the kind of marriage people envied. For years, my husband, Daniel, and I were seen as the perfect couple. Steady, affectionate, the kind of love story friends and family admired. At least, that's the image we gave the world. Behind closed doors, though, cracks had begun to form. It started subtly. Daniel's laughter around me grew less frequent, replaced by distracted nods and hurried excuses. Work trips became more common, late-night messages more frequent, and he always had explanations ready. He was clever, practiced, and convincing enough to make me second-guess my own instincts. But the truth always finds a way to surface. The first time suspicion really took root was when he began his so-called boys' nights out. Daniel never used to care much for late nights at bars, but suddenly, every other weekend, he was out past midnight, coming home smelling faintly of whiskey and perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked, he'd chuckle, ruffle my hair, and say, "Relax, babe. You know me. Just poker, just drinks, nothing more." And I wanted to believe him. After all, wasn't marriage built on trust? But my heart told me something darker was brewing. The real breaking point came one night when Daniel left for another supposed boys' night. He kissed me on the cheek, too quickly, as if I were a friend instead of his wife. His cologne lingered in the doorway long after he was gone. This time, I couldn't sit still. Something inside me, maybe intuition, maybe desperation, urged me to follow. I waited 15 minutes, grabbed my keys, and drove. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I trailed his car through the dimly lit streets of our small town. He didn't head toward the usual bars or restaurants where he claimed to meet his friends. Instead, his car slipped quietly into a quieter neighborhood, one I knew all too well. When he parked, my heart nearly stopped. It was outside my sister Emily's house. At first, I told myself it had to be a coincidence. Maybe he was dropping something off. Maybe Emily had called for help. Maybe there was an explanation that didn't involve betrayal. But then I saw it. The front porch light flickered on, and Emily appeared at the door. She wasn't dressed for a casual evening at home. She wore a silk robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years, radiant, glowing. And when Daniel walked up the steps, he didn't hesitate. He kissed her. Not the kind of kiss you give a friend or even a drunken mistake. It was slow, deliberate, the kind of kiss that spoke of secrets and familiarity. I sat frozen in my car, every breath shallow, my chest tightening as if the world itself was collapsing in on me. My husband. My sister. The two people I loved most in this world had chosen each other, behind my back, while I lived in the lie of our perfect family. For a long moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't cry. Couldn't scream. It was as though my body refused to accept the truth my eyes had just witnessed. They disappeared inside her house, the door closing behind them like a final verdict. I don't remember how long I stayed parked on that street, staring at the empty doorway. The night was silent except for the pounding of my own heartbeat and the whispering echo of every promise Daniel had ever made to me. Every vow we exchanged at the altar felt like ash in my mouth now. I drove home eventually, numb, my hands stiff on the wheel. My mind replayed the image over and over, the robe, the kiss, the way Daniel looked at Emily as if she was the woman he was meant to love. But beneath the devastation, something else was stirring. Something darker. Because in that moment, a single thought carved itself into my soul. They think they can betray me and get away with it. But they have no idea what's coming next. The days after that night felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I went through the motions of daily life, making coffee, answering work emails, smiling when neighbors waved, but inside, I was hollow. Every glance at Daniel was like swallowing glass. Every call from Emily twisted the knife deeper. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I played the part of the oblivious wife, listening to Daniel's lies with a nod, pretending not to notice the faint lipstick stain he missed on his shirt collar, or the text alerts he silenced the moment they lit up his phone. But behind my silence, I was watching. Planning. One evening, when Daniel left his phone unattended on the kitchen counter, I picked it up. My hands shook, but I forced myself to scroll. At first, there were no messages from Emily, just the usual work emails and group chats with his so-called friends. But then I found it, a hidden messaging app tucked into a folder marked Utilities. Clever. Almost too clever. And there they were. Hundreds of messages. Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish I could wake up next to you instead of her. Soon, love. Soon we won't have to sneak around anymore. Each word was a dagger, each line a confirmation that what I had seen wasn't some drunken mistake. This was an affair. A relationship. A betrayal of the worst kind. But what shattered me most wasn't the messages themselves. It was the photographs. Selfies of Daniel in my sister's bed. Emily wearing jewelry I'd given her for her birthday, smiling like she'd won. Them together at restaurants Daniel claimed he went to with co-workers. Even one photo of the two of them, hands entwined, with a caption that read, "Our secret world." My hands went cold as I scrolled, but I didn't cry. The tears had dried up days ago. What replaced them was something else entirely, an icy calm, fueled by rage. That night, I lay awake in bed, Daniel sleeping soundly beside me, and I made a promise to myself I would not let them destroy me. I would not simply confront them and walk away with nothing. If they wanted to play with fire, then I'd make sure they burned. But revenge requires patience. And patience meant acting normal. So I smiled at Daniel the next morning, kissed him goodbye as he left for work, and even texted Emily later that day, thanking her for helping me pick out a gift for Mom. I played my role so convincingly that they never suspected I knew the truth. Meanwhile, I began gathering evidence. I printed the messages, saved the photos, even followed them once more, this time with my phone camera recording as they walked hand in hand into a hotel. Each piece of proof was like a brick in the wall I was building, one that would eventually trap them both. But here's the thing about betrayal. Once you know it, you start seeing all the little signs you missed before. The way Emily had always been a little too interested in Daniel's job. The way Daniel used to linger a little too long when hugging her at family gatherings. The inside jokes they shared at my expense, the whispers that I brushed off as harmless. They thought they were clever, hiding their affair behind boys' nights and sisterly advice. But now I saw everything clearly, and the more I uncovered, the more dangerous my thoughts became. Because I didn't just want to expose them. I wanted them to feel what I felt, to watch their perfect little world crumble in front of them, to know what it was like to lose everything. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. One Saturday, Daniel announced he'd be going on another trip with the guys. I smiled sweetly, kissed his cheek, and asked if he wanted me to pack him a snack for the road. He laughed, thinking I was the dutiful wife who bought his lies. But once he left, I grabbed my keys and followed. This time, I didn't stop at the curb. I parked down the street from Emily's house, far enough not to be seen but close enough to watch. Hours passed. Lights flicked on and off inside. Shadows moved across the curtains. And just as I was about to leave, the front door opened. Daniel stepped out, shirt half-buttoned, hair messy, grinning like a man who thought he was untouchable. Emily followed, wrapping her arms around him before kissing him goodnight. Right there, on the porch, as if they had no fear in the world. And in that moment, an idea struck me. Not a confrontation. Not a tearful outburst. Something bigger. Something that would not only expose them but humiliate them in front of everyone they cared about. Because betrayal thrives in the dark. And I was about to drag their secret into the brightest light possible. But before I could execute my plan, I discovered something else. Something that changed everything and made this game even more dangerous than I imagined. Buried in those secret messages between Daniel and Emily was a single line that froze my blood. Don't worry. Once she's out of the way, we can finally have the life we want. Out of the way. They weren't just betraying me. They were planning something far worse. That one sentence haunted me. Once she's out of the way, we can finally have the life we want. At first, I thought I was reading too much into it. Maybe it was just a careless phrase, a slip of the tongue typed in a moment of recklessness. But the more I studied their messages, the more certain I became. Daniel and Emily weren't just betraying me, they were plotting to remove me from their lives completely. And suddenly, everything made sense. The way Daniel had been encouraging me to go hiking alone, despite me never being the outdoorsy type. The glass of wine Emily had poured for me at dinner last week, urging me to just relax after a long day. The subtle ways they were trying to push me toward situations where an accident could easily be staged. They didn't want a divorce. They wanted me gone. But they had underestimated me. I decided I wouldn't wait for them to strike first. If they wanted to play a game of betrayal and deceit, I would finish it, and I would finish it on my terms. The plan took weeks to set in motion. Carefully, quietly, I built a web of evidence. Printouts of texts, photos, videos, financial records showing money Daniel had siphoned into Emily's account. Enough to destroy them both if placed in the right hands. But I didn't just want to ruin them behind closed doors. I wanted everyone to see the truth. The perfect opportunity came in the form of my parents' wedding anniversary party. A grand family gathering, with relatives, friends, and neighbors all under one roof. Emily, of course, would be there. And Daniel, ever the charming son-in-law, wouldn't dare miss it. I remember the day vividly. I wore a red dress, not my usual style, but striking enough to demand attention. My heart hammered in my chest as I greeted guests, smiling, laughing, pretending to be the perfect hostess, all while knowing the storm that was about to hit. Dinner passed in a blur. Toasts were made, glasses clinked, laughter echoed through the hall. Emily and Daniel sat across the table from me, side by side, stealing glances they thought went unnoticed. My stomach churned, but my smile never wavered. Then, as dessert was served, I stood. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled slightly behind the glass. "To family, to loyalty, and to the truth that always finds its way to the surface." A hush fell over the room. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small projector I'd hidden earlier. With one click, the screen at the front of the hall lit up. At first, it showed a happy photo of me and Daniel on our wedding day, smiling like fools in love. A collective "oh" rippled through the crowd. And then the next image appeared. Daniel and Emily. Together. Gasps erupted. Chairs scraped against the floor as people leaned forward, disbelief written on every face. Slide after slide appeared, messages, selfies, hotel receipts, every damning piece of evidence I had gathered. Daniel shot to his feet, his face pale. "Turn it off," he shouted, his voice cracking. Emily's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. But I wasn't finished. The final slide was the message that had sealed their fate. "Once she's out of the way, we can finally have the life we want." The room erupted in chaos. My mother sobbed. My father looked ready to throw Daniel out himself. Relatives whispered furiously, some glaring at Emily, others staring at Daniel as though he were a stranger. And me. I stood tall, calm, watching as their carefully built lies collapsed in front of everyone who mattered. Daniel lunged toward me, but my brother intercepted him, shoving him back with a look of pure disgust. Emily tried to speak, to spin some excuse, but no one listened. Their reputations were destroyed. Their secret was no longer theirs, it was public property. But I wasn't done yet. The very next morning, I walked into the lawyer's office with my folder of evidence. Divorce papers were drawn up, assets frozen, accounts investigated. Daniel tried to beg, tried to threaten, but he had no leverage left. Everything he had hidden was now in the open. Emily. She lost more than her reputation. Her own fiancé, yes, she had one, left her the moment he found out. Her friends vanished, ashamed to be associated with her betrayal. She became a shadow of the sister I once knew, isolated and broken. As for Daniel, he lost the house, the respect of his family, and the career he had worked years to build. The man who thought he could outsmart me was left with nothing. And me. I walked away free. It wasn't easy. Betrayal never heals overnight. There are still nights when I wake up from dreams of that kiss on Emily's porch, my heart aching with the memory of what I lost. But then I remind myself, I didn't lose. They did. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't just destroy trust, it destroys the betrayers themselves. And while they thought they had written the perfect ending to my story, I made sure to give them one they never saw coming.